before I get this presentation officially started, I do want to give a shout out to the Cubs and how they are now the World Series championship and how cool that is. What a time to be alive. But I also want to let you know that if you are currently wondering if you can multitask, you can, because I wrote this paper, of course, the week before it's due, and watched all the Cubs games. So, yeah, multitasking is real and it does exist. But hi, my name is Brooke and I wanted to present to you my country and the paper that I had written on over Niger. Niger lies right here. I put a map here on this slide. It lies right there in Africa, right between Mali and Chad. It does have a population of 17.1 million. Today I kind of hope to go over a lot of things with you. I hope to talk about the economic situation, the agriculture and how it is huge over there, the societal issues that are going on in Africa, or, Niger to be more specific, and the barriers to progressing and how they are progressing in their own way. So, without further ado, I suggest we can probably get started. So, I do want to talk a little bit about their economic situation and where they get their income from mostly. Most of their income is from agriculture, obviously, because, everybody says, and a lot of it is from mining and trading. It was actually stated that 28 to 30% of the total economy is developed on small trading, herding, and informal markets. So, unfortunately, it's not a very big system that they have over there, and as you can probably guess from that, it's a very poor country with that being said. However, it was kind of neat to see that there has been an increase in their economy by 10% in 1960. Well, since that increase, it had actually continued to shrink 27% in 1980 and 48% by the 1990s. So unfortunately, it is decreasing, and that's kind of too bad. So that's kind of how it's flexing out a little bit. Their currency that they use over there has actually changed up a little bit since what they have used before. So back before World War II, they had used the CFA franc, and now today they are using the French franc. So that's kind of something neat. So they did change that up, and actually whenever that did change, it did peak their economy just a little bit, but it is constantly changing, so it dropped back down. There are some societal issues going over there, as you can probably guess. And unfortunately, this is probably where the heart of the paper comes in, because this is kind of where it touched me, just breaking my heart a little bit due to the malnutrition's going on over there. So I had actually gotten to read a really neat article that was titled Socioeconomic Life of the Rural Dwellers in Niger Delta Region of Niger, and this was found in the Technology for Development in 2013, published by Barrow and Edgware. Now, these guys had kind of gone out and did a lot of studying the country and how they are growing. And it was found that they have the highest in the growth rate because they are a very, very young country. They are one of the most fertile countries there, and there are about 15 kids to one mom. So as you can guess, there's a lot of kids and the attention's not really given. Out of the 17.1 million people, that 49.2% of the population is under 15 years old. 2.7% of this population is over 65. It was also mentioned that a study done in 2005 that there are over 800,000 of this population is currently in slavery. So because of so much of the malnutrition, this is actually brought on by the droughts. It is a very, very dry country where they are, and so keeping livestock and crops alive is very, very difficult. Save the Children is actually a organization that we'll get into a little bit more, but they had noted that this is the world's highest mortality rate is found here in Niger due to all the malnutrition. It is also the 11th highest maternal rate, and that there are 820 deaths out of 100,000 live births. So it's very alarming because, we have such young kids over there and they are struggling for their lives every single day. There was actually another reading done by Campbell and Zurich, and they were the authors of Niger, Too Little Too Late, and this was posted in 2011, that food sources are based on the grains that the Nigers farm. and they are unable to produce most of it because most of it is a lot of crops that they are cereal crops, so the nutrition value is not very much there. So the consumption of milk is actually slowly decreasing due to the reduction in number of cattle that is brought on by these droughts. So that's a big societal issue that they're having over there because, it's hard to feed the people, and that's where it hurts because it's not necessarily, there's a lot to do with their sources and everything like that. So it's just kind of a difficult situation, you could say. So, of course, with being in ag class, we gotta get into the role of agriculture. If you notice down here, and hopefully I'm not too much in the way, that we do have a photo of how they do transport water and how they are trying to keep their crops alive down there in the corner where they don't have the technology that we do. Trust me, I know that our farmers work so hard for what we have, but these guys really have to work hard. But like I mentioned before, 1/3 of the workforce is actually based in agriculture. And 90% of this is all engaged in farming, and this is usually largely the crops. The leading crops are cowpeas, cotton, peanuts, millet, sorghum, and rice. And then they also have a lot of livestock of cattle, sheep, goats, camels, donkeys, horses, and poultry that are raised. It's really hard to have agriculture over there because, like I had mentioned before, because of the climate and how it is just so hard, and they will go years and years without any kind of rainfall. And as you can imagine, you got to keep animals alive somehow, and how this can be a big issue. So I think I do have some photos. So I had mentioned before that our farmers work hard, but as you can see, they have to do everything by hand. Like, this is a third world country. And to me, I was very surprised to see this because I had always thought that, maybe this was just in the older days, but unfortunately that's not the case. It's going on now. It's going on November 3rd, 2016. So this is our photos. So we do have a couple of recent progress and barriers that keep us from moving on a little bit here in Niger. But we do have that, it was actually whenever the money had switched over from the franc to the CFA franc in January, it had actually created an average economic growth of 3.5%. And since then, the economy, like I had mentioned before, is kind of always stagnating to become higher and lower. And this source is coming from McHugh and Sylvia, who posted an article in 2013. So then we also do have our barriers. I've talked a lot about how there's minimal to no rainfall at all, but unfortunately that's just a really big part of it. That's a big part of how they're not feeding their people, how it's just becoming a very big thing for people, not to get the nutrition that they need because they don't have a way to get that nutrition there, if that makes any sense. But so there was, that kind of barrier. And then there was also something that I found very, very interesting was the president over there in 2009, and I will probably mess up his name, but was Mamadou Tanja. And the reason why he is actually a barrier is because he proposed that after his 5-year term as president, he was actually going to re-sign a different constitution, make a new constitution, and then go forth from it there. And so whenever that happened, there was actually a democracy issue. And so there was a lot of barriers there with their democracy. And that's continually going because, there's a lot of changes going on. So within this course of, just a few years, really, they're having a hard time trusting their government, which, don't we all? But then we do have the current situations over there. Like I had mentioned before, that their problem is they don't have the education that we do, which I think we're seeing in a lot of the countries that we have been studying, and a lot of our guest speakers have kind of mentioned this before. So it's just kind of becoming a little bit difficult that way, with them having their irrigation is not up to date, and it very much should be, since most of Niger uses irrigation, except for a big part of it. But then there are two different places that focus on the children, and that's Save the Children and Action Against Hunger. And these two organizations do what they can to educate and to help kids over there. So, I guess I'll have to ask you, what did you learn today? Agriculture in Niger makes up to what percent of the GDP? What percentage of Niger's population is under 15 years old? and what crop was not mentioned as being one of the leading crops. So I had a great time talking to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed listening.